how's it going?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you okay. How about, can you hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
How are
Hope
you?
you're have not bad, not bad. Hope you're having a good week so far.
Okay. Yeah.
Great. So let's jump right into it. How about that? So my name is Simon. I'm currently a senior software engineer at Spotify, and I'll be conducting the interview today, which will run for about an hour. I'll ask you some questions about your past experience, followed by maybe one or two technical coding problems. And of
Mm.
course, the interview itself should be collaborative, very much like a dialogue, but also hands off from my perspective, like a normal evaluative interview would be. And just to set expectations, I'm totally okay with you looking up language documentation, syntax, things like that. But full answers to questions would not be okay. And please, of course, let me know if you've seen the question I'm asking before. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right, great. I'll definitely leave some time at the end for me to give you verbal feedback, and don't worry about writing down any notes that I give because you'll also get those comments in written form as well. And to that end, you may hear me typing, but of course, that's just me writing down notes. So my feedback can be specific and complete and ultimately valuable.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
so before we get started, do you have any questions for me?
Um. Yeah. I don't have any questions.
All right,
No.
let's jump right in then.
Yeah.
So why don't you start by telling me about a project that you've worked on at some point in the last 2 years, maybe some technical challenges that you faced, and how you solved them.
Yeah. Um. So currently, my name is Manikanta. So currently, I'm doing masters in computer science.
Great,
Currently this is my last semester and I will be graduating in December. And yeah, uh, the last 2 months I worked on a project. So it's a project. Uh, the project is about. I worked on the AWS EC2 uh, console. So I wrote a tool to manage the AWS EC2 running instances.
hmm
Yeah. So this tool, like it will help you to figure out like what are the instances running in each region and what are the volumes like you attached during the peak moment or you removed, and for each instance and for each region, and it keeps a track of all the information about all the EC2 instances. So for a particular account. So So this thing, so the programming language I used was Python 3, and so Boto 3 it's an SDK. Like I used it for scraping extracting the data from the AWS EC2.
great.
Um,
So maybe what were some technical challenges that you faced, and how did you end up
um,
solving them?
yeah, yeah. So the Python 3, the Python, it was a new language for me. So like I was primarily using Java, so Python it was a new language, and the Boto 3 SDK it's very new. So there was a learning curve, and I contacted my friends and I took uh, um, guidance from my roommates and to help me uh, with the project. I have like the challenges I have faced in the so
Sure. Did
yeah.
you have to like face any sort of trade-off decisions while you were implementing? Um, like, were there any interesting challenges you faced in that regard?
Yeah, initially, certain challenges like how to set up the uh, uh, remote SSH, how to SSH yeah from the from like how to initially set up the SSH for your account and how to access those. the account, the easy to account details, and these were like initial challenges for me since I did not use the like how to the public keys and private keys and SSH. So these
Sure.
were
Oh,
yeah initial challenges and
all right. Sounds good. So why don't we jump into a technical problem?
yeah.
So what's your preferred language?
Java.
Java. All right, let's do that. All right. So the
Yeah.
prompt itself is very simple. So what we want to do, and do you see me like typing here? Basically, I'm like moving around here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So basically, this is the prompt. I want us to write a function that prints out all the 8-digit palindromes. And the only limitation here is we can't use string manipulation.
Oh, okay. Um, so so what are the constraints? Like, so what are the input will be given?
So there's no inputs. We just want our function to basically print out all those palindromes. So
Oh,
technically
okay.
speaking, there aren't even any outputs since we're just printing to the console. Um, so technically no inputs and no outputs, but we are printing. That's our sort of active action.
Oh, okay. Um, so palindromes, okay. Um, so 8-digit means also even length palindromes, okay. And we can't use the string manipulation, okay.
I mean, this is maybe a limitation that I want us to think about, but if you can think of a solution that does use string manipulation, we can talk about it. But
Oh,
we'll ultimately have to settle on a solution that doesn't use it. And the
oh,
reason being is that since we're using numbers, we want to leverage uh, the internal CPU's ability to do arithmetic operations easily. Uh, and let's say for our purposes, string manipulation is just a little too heavy.
okay. Um, so 8-digit palindromes, okay. Um, and the characters will be only digits, right? Numbers.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Mhm. So even length palindromes are uh, so for example 4 5 and so this is an even length so this is a 8-digit palindrome and
It
uh,
is not a
uh,
palindrome.
yeah it is not a palindrome so I'm just saying so this is just a 8-digit number and if the if you like if I want to be this palindrome so at exactly half so it should mirror it. So if I divide it by half, so
Right. Yes, that would be an 8-digit palindrome. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and I think the minimum palindrome will be the 00, all zeros.
So this is a good situation to bring up. So for our purposes, this actually would not be a valid 8-digit palindrome. We basically are not allowing any leading zeros. Like if we had a situation like this would
Okay.
basically be in our mind just zero, and that would not be an 8-digit palindrome.
Okay. Okay.
So even if we had a situation like 00122100, this would not be an 8-digit palindrome. It would simply be 122100. Does that make
Uh,
sense?
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So so it would be wrong basically. But
Okay.
it's a good call out.
Okay. Okay. So I think the starting palindrome um, will be it will start with one because I think the zero is not allowed.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you there. That would be the smallest 8-digit palindrome.
Yeah, this is the smallest, and the I think the largest will be all nines.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because if anything, yeah, if yeah, this will be last palindrome because if you increase one, so it will become a nine digit. So so one way to do this is uh, if I keep a start as this start as 100001, and
Mhm.
yeah, if I increment like one by one and check if it is a palindrome, so if it is a palindrome I can print it. So one way to check it is a palindrome or not, so um, I will compare, so there are total 8 digits, so I will compare, so for checking the palindrome.
But before we go into that approach, I do think that that would be a valid approach. It
Yeah,
is it does feel a little bit too
yeah,
like we
brute
might
force.
be going through too many cases. Yeah. Can we think of an approach that maybe doesn't have to like cycle through so many possibilities?
Okay, okay, yeah, one approach I think I'm thinking of, like, um, since it is since it is an even length palindrome, if we construct the first 4 digits, and then the rest of the 4 digits will be the reverse of the first 4 digits.
Mhm. Okay. That sounds interesting. How are we going to reverse it?
Um, for reversing, I can use stack. Uh,
Talk me through that a little bit more.
okay. So so if I use a stack like zero zero, suppose 1 2 3 4 and 4. Uh, suppose if you are constructing suppose this example 1 2 3 4, and I want to reverse it. So in this case, I will extract maybe digit by digit. So suppose if I extract 4,
How would we
and
extract 4?
uh, um, I can do the, yeah, if I divide it with 10, I can get the remainder 4
If you divide it,
with
you won't get the remainder.
sorry,
If you divide this by 10, what will you get?
yeah, so I will get 4. So divided, so I for the remainder I will use this one, percentage.
Yeah, modulo, right? Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah,
just wanted to be
modulo.
on the same page. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So if I did, so I will, if I use modulo, so I will get the remainder 4, uh, and so after getting the remainder, so first it will be 4, and for next time after getting the remainder, I can just multiply the 4 in, so 4 into 10, so it will be 40, and if I add, so it will be 43.
Mhm. Gotcha. How are we going to get the 3?
3, so like, so after getting 4, we can just divide by 10. So, since it is an, if we assume it is an integer, so
Well, we don't
it
have
will
to assume
become
it.
the,
You can make it an integer if you want, right?
yeah. So, so, so if we do 1, 2, 3, 4 by 10, so it will become 1, 2, 123.4, and in integer it will become 123.
Got it. Okay. So I think I understand now. So can we recap the algorithm then?
Yeah.
Can we summarize the whole algorithm overall?
Yeah. So instead of using the start as the 8 digits, we can use just 4 digits and reverse uh, reverse the start and append it to it. So in this way, like, uh, we are not calculating, we are not going through whole 8 digits. So we are going through only 4 digits.
So two questions for you. Why is that the start? And actually, let's start there. Why is that your start? Why was
No,
1111?
I'm sorry. 100. I think if it reverts 0, oh yeah,
Yeah. I think.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
1001 will be start. Yeah.
no, I don't think that would be the start either. I can think of a smaller palindrome than that, right? We could have this
Yeah.
because if that's your start, that would be
Yeah.
right. So it's
Yeah.
bigger. I just want to be clear about that, right? Like, because I want us to be sure that we're going to go through all the possibilities. So that's why I'm just bringing it up. But it's a small thing. Um, but a follow up question I have is, you said you're just going to append it. What do you mean by appending it? Can we be a little more precise?
Um. Yeah. Appending is so since here so in this example, so while reversing it, we are having only 4. So to make it 43, we are multiplying it by 10 and we are adding, right? So
Right.
in our case, after constructing the initial part, 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we have number. This is the reverse part.
Yeah.
Uh, now if I do, since we know that it's 4 digits, so we multiply it by, yeah, 10,000. So,
Gotcha.
so it,
Okay. Yeah, that
yeah,
makes sense, right? Because we can't use string manipulation, so this is kind of the only thing that we're left with.
yeah,
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 that's
yeah,
great. Yeah, this makes sense to me. So does the algorithm make sense to you overall?
yeah, yeah. But I
All right.
think still I think it's a brute force way. Still, we are
Mhm.
calculating. Means we are going through every combination, but we reduce it from 8 digit to 4 digit. Uh,
Right. Yeah. I'm not sure that we can do actually better than this because we're at the very least going over n possibilities where n is exactly the number of palindromes, right? So we'll have to
yeah.
be able to do that at the very least anyway. So I think that's okay. Why don't we implement this?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Uh, so okay here.
Yeah, and don't worry about it ultimately compiling.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. So for calculating the rewards, so I am using an helper function. So I wrote the code. So this is the parent function. So we can just call it, and it will print the palindrome.
Okay, so again, I just want to point out that you are missing a case.
Yeah. So 1000. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Great job. This would work. Just to clean up the code a little bit. So this would work. Um, Now, we're not going to code this part, but let's just sort of think through some ideas. So what this function does right now is it generates all 8-digit palindromes. Uh, let's say I wanted to generalize this to all even digit palindromes. So, 8-digit palindromes, 16, 32, 64. Can you indicate to me where we would maybe change the lines of code in the algorithm to make it more generalized?
Okay. So we want to make it to like the to print a k length palindromes while k is even.
Right.
Okay.
Can you just like tell me like where we would change the lines of code and what we would roughly change it to?
Uh, yeah. Like initially, I can think of is like changing the start and end. So
Okay. And what would we change it to?
uh, so this one. Uh, so one way of
What?
doing this is like changing the start and end. So changing start digits. So if we want a even length palindrome of size uh, 4, then uh, yeah, we can change it to 1 1. Uh,
Why 1 1?
yeah, if we change it to 1 0, then while calculating the reverse, it will be 1 0. So 0 into 10. So 0, some will be 0, and next it will be 1. Yeah. So if we start from uh, so 1 0, while reversing it, it will just return 1. So it will be an odd length palindrome.
Sure. So what you're telling me is every time I want to have a different number of digit palindromes, I have to keep changing this line over and over again. So if I want 2, I'll have to edit this line. If I want if I want 16, I'll have to edit this line. Is that what you're telling me?
Uh, um, yeah.
Can we think of a better approach?
Uh,
So what you're telling me is basically that I'm either going to have infinitely many versions of this function, right?
yeah, yeah.
One of them where there's like this, another one where there's like this, another one where there's this. Is that what you're telling me?
Um, so like I can think of, so So if we gave the variable k, so which uh, the k will be the even the what we want the length of the palindrome of
Hmm.
like of size as in the even
Gotcha, gotcha.
so now we can just generalize the this palin function to only to perform the final even length palindromes.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that would work, right? We would need something like 10 to the power of k minus 1, right? And then
Yeah,
here would be 10 to the power of k, right? Those would be the changes.
yeah.
All right, great. I think this would work. Good job on this problem. Let's move on to another problem.
Okay, okay, cool.
Gotcha. So let's let's move down a little bit further. So I'm just gonna let's say this.
Yeah,
Let's we just have another function, for example. Okay, so basically the purpose of our function, the purpose of our second problem is let's imagine that we have a book. Now, in its very simplest form, we have a book. Books
okay,
are full of a bunch of words, and let's actually be a little bit more specific. Let's say it's a textbook, for example. You're
okay.
familiar with how, like, at the end of textbook, there's like an alphabetized index of words at the back. So, for
uh,
example, if we have, like, let's say a biology textbook or something like that, we might see like animals, and then it
mm,
shows what pages they appear on, right?
uh,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and we have biology, and then it's like, 2, 3, 4, 6. It's like a book about biology, so we'd expect it to happen in a lot of places. So
Oh, okay. So
um,
the important words and the pages which they appear on.
right, so the only thing I'll draw your attention to is basically that these words themselves are alphabetically sorted, and the pages that those words appear on are page sorted in increasing
Yeah.
order.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, what I want to be able to do is, given a book, um, I
Okay.
want us to generate this index.
Okay. So, okay, given a book, so want to generate the index. So, but how do I know, but like, how should I get the words? So what are these words are like based on?
Sure. So let's actually talk about the structure of the book. Um, how do you want the book given to you? Like we
Okay.
can understand that, like, a book has pages, it has like, paragraphs and words and things like that. So let me ask you. So like, how would you want that book given to you in what form?
Okay. Um, yeah, the book should consist of the words and the page numbers. Yeah, so the book, it should consist of like the the pages, and so suppose let's assume so the book is consisting of 100 pages, and in
Hmm.
100 pages like there are words.
Sure.
Uh,
So can we be more precise? Like what data structures would we be using? Like I'm happy to give it to you, and I'm like flexible on the form of the input. So let me
uh,
know what you would like.
oh, okay. So I want to, so it will be a list of lists. So because so it will be a list of pages and each page consisting of words. So it will be of a list of array list. So it will be of I think so it will be a list of string. So
And what does this string represent?
So these strings are the words. So
Hmm.
example, the animals and cells.
Sure.
Um, yeah, because so I think it will look like this. Uh, Animals, cells, and in the second page, so biology. So this the size of the book will give me the total number of pages, and each index uh, I can get the page number.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense
Mm.
to me. So that would be like page 0, biology would be page 1, or,
Yeah.
whatever, if it's based or zero based, that's your call. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm happy to give you the book in this form. Um, but one thing I do notice is that this doesn't look like a sentence to me. So I don't know if I can
Yeah.
just simply give you these words. So like, I can imagine, I'm not going to write it in the form that you gave it yet, but like, biology is the study of life. Life is important for all organisms. Like let's say this is like our first page or something like that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Right? Like that would be technically how the book is. So like
Yeah.
I like what you've got going here. Um, but let's say the
Um.
reality is, we have something like this as the actual textbook. What do you see, like any thoughts that you'd like to bring up about this?
Yeah. 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 So one way is so if it is a list of string, and so the string will be the each page.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um.
Why?
Uh. Uh. Yeah. So there the sentence is nothing but the it's a collection of words, and
Can you maybe communicate to me like the issue that you're seeing with this? Because I'm not necessarily opposed to this initial idea that you brought up, but I do want to understand like if this brings up any issues for us. Like what issues are you seeing?
um um yeah, if the given book is in this format, like
I'm not saying it's in this given format. I'm just saying that like this is not an impossible situation where we kind of have like this sentence, like this is what the book will look like. Um, and even if I give it to you like this, like do you notice any like issues that might be problematic for us as we're sort of generating this index?
um yeah. um
I mean, so for one thing, there's punctuation, right?
y- yeah, yeah, because if it's a string, and in string, so in Java, like we need to end it with so
Right. And there's also, capitalized words and things like that. Are there any
yeah.
other issues here that might end up making our index maybe a little bit bigger than we want.
Um, in, yeah. So if like if the book is represented in this form, like we need to calculate. So we need to extract each words, the animals, biology, cells, and so.
So again, just to be clear, I'm happy to give it to you in this format, and I'll even say I'll strip out the punctuation for you. And even better, I'll make it all lowercase. Let's say I do all that for you. Let's say I tokenize it, I lowercase it, I remove the punctuation, and I give it to you in the format that you initially suggested as a list of strings.
Okay.
Do you even with that being said, might we have like any issues? So, something like biology is the study of life. Life
Okay.
is important for all organisms, right? I'm just, I just want it to be clear that like I'm happy with this initial proposal, but is there anything that kind of jumps out at you here?
Um, so, in, so in this format, biology.
I mean, I'm going to have something like this in my dictionary, in my index, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like there's probably going to be the word the word is like on every page, right? That'll kind of
Yeah.
make my index very big, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We need to extract those indexes like which are important. So which have the priority.
Sure. Okay. Can you see any issues with like coming up with a list of like quote unquote important words? Like let's say, this is a biology textbook, right? But then at some point we have a textbook about like art history or a textbook about chemistry. How do we know what's important?
Um, yeah. One way is so if we calculate the frequency of the words, so suppose the is and the so this will have a higher frequency than the biology.
Right. Sure. So we could do some sort of a heuristic where if it's like a lot, we remove it, and if it's not a lot, then we keep it. Okay. Can you think of any other approaches?
Um, and
What if I told you what all the unimportant words were, right? Like we can imagine that
Y-
Maybe
Yeah,
what's important between an art history textbook and a biology textbook is different, but probably what's
yeah,
unimportant is maybe a little bit more consistent, right? Like is and the and all that stuff.
yeah. So if we have an unimportant words list, so here like
Okay,
yeah, while scanning through each page, we can just so if we keep this unimportant in a set, so an important set. So if we scan through while scanning through each page, if we encounter the word which is already in the unimportant set, so we can skip that word.
great. Yeah, I like that approach. Okay, so can we maybe like now formalize the algorithm a little bit?
Okay, yeah, okay. So the book is in the list of list format, right?
Sure. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, yeah. And book and the unimportant words.
So why'd you give it to me as a list?
I'm sorry. Could you please repeat it?
So you want this as a list?
Yeah. So it's a yeah, list of unimportant words.
Okay, fine. So walk me through the algorithm.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. Uh, Initially, like so I want to keep these unimportant words in a set
Okay, what's the benefit of the set over the string, over the list?
because in set so we can look up in constant time. So we can look up the word in constant time. So in list, like
Great.
in list, like you need to scan through whole list. So it will be like complexity will be linear time.
Sure. Okay, so let me just give it to you as a set, right? Like we have the
Oh, okay.
flexibility, right? So
Oh, yeah,
that's why
yeah.
I brought that up. Okay, great. So walk me through the algorithm.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You don't have to write
Um,
it out yet. You could just explain it to me for now.
yeah. So I need to go to through so each page of the book, and while going through each page, I need to iterate the whole page, and I need to see every word. So and for every word, like first I need to see it is important or not. So if it is
Mhm.
important, then um, I can keep track of it. So I can use a hash map.
Okay.
Yeah, for the indexing. So hash map, the key will be the important word, so the string,
Mhm.
and the for the pages. So I can use list. So
Sure.
since it integer.
Great. Yeah. Okay,
Uh,
this makes sense.
Yeah, so while scanning through, so every word, first I will look into is important or not. So if it is important, then then I will check if this if it is present in the hash map or not. So if it present in the hash map, then I can just add the page number to the list. If it's not, so I can create a new key and a new list, so I can just add it to them. So finally, I
All
can
right.
return the dictionary.
Yeah. The only thing to note is that the words may not be sorted, right? Like this is in sorted order, the words themselves, but the hash map won't necessarily give that to you, but that's totally okay. There are approaches around that. But yeah, I'm happy with that approach. I'll leave it to you as an exercise to implement on your own after this interview. But why don't we jump into feedback?
Yeah.
So why don't you tell me how you're feeling? Tell me what are your thoughts about how this interview went?
Um, yeah. So this is my second interview like on this platform. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So what I observed, so from the like first interview I gave, so the feedback I got, so on my side it was pretty bad. So I didn't communicate very well. So the interviewer like he gave feedback on me, so to communicate and to communicate your approach, because sometimes you may, so without communication you may go to different approach and that approach may dead end. So the complete, so it will be a complete waste of time. So what he suggested was um, you need to explain everything like your thought process and everything. So so
Yeah,
the time so yeah. So in the second interview, like this time, like I thought, so I'm thinking like so I communicated good, well, better than last time.
great. Okay, so I'm
Yeah.
actually very glad to hear that you brought that up. I'm glad that you're sort of taking that feedback from your past interviewer and applying it now. So I'm glad that you sense that you communicated better. Um, but I will actually say that I 100% agree with your first interviewer, that I think that my main piece of feedback for you is that I would like you to be even more communicative than you were this time. Um, so overall, I would actually say that your technical problem solving skills are pretty good. But
Okay.
what I would like to sting you on most first and foremost is the communication. So I'm actually glad to hear that you're working on it. So that's great. I want actually even more of your thoughts. And as I'll go through each of the problems, I'll kind of maybe suggest where you could have like given me a little bit more when you didn't. Um, but I would say that like keep working on that communication as you sort of do future interviews on this platform. But let's
Mm,
go um, one by one. Actually, could you give me just 1 second?
yeah, sure.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay. So let's
Yeah.
start with the behavioral question that I asked you at the very beginning. So I basically
Oh,
asked
okay.
you, um, talk me through like a project that you worked on, some challenges you faced, and how you solved them. I will say that the first time you started answering that question rather, you only answered the first part of the question, which was tell me about a project. You didn't talk at all about the technical problems you faced or how you solved them. I had to like draw that out of you a little bit more. And even when I
Uh,
did draw that out of you, um, I would say that maybe there was probably a better way of approaching the question. In general, I would say that a common issue that you'll face, of course, when you're an engineer, is that you need to learn a new language, learn a new framework. But I wouldn't say that that's necessarily like a good candidate for answering that question. I think that there are better examples to conjure up when it comes to that, like situations when you had to make certain trade-offs, like around performance or extensibility or um, scalability. Like I think that in general, those are better candidates for answering the question. Um, So in general, maybe in the future, when you're kind of dealing with that sort of question, maybe avoid talking about languages or frameworks. I think it's just like not as rich. Like I can't necessarily delve more deeply into that as an interviewer. Like it's kind of
Okay,
not very
okay.
fruitful to talk about, oh, like what about the framework was difficult? You know what I mean? Whereas I can delve a little bit more deeply into, performance trade-offs or like why you did something, if that makes sense. So I would say in the future, kind of like have a ready example that ties into that a little bit better. And even when I did kind of prompt you with that, like where I said, can you talk about like some trade-offs that you had to make? I didn't think you quite answered that part of the question. So for the future, just have something like that as an example that you can conjure up. Does that sort of make sense?
Um, yeah, 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 yeah. I got it. Yeah,
All right, great. So let's jump into the first question, the palindrome generator question. So overall, I think you did pretty well with this question. I was wondering whether you would catch the edge case of leading zeros, and you actually brought that example up pretty immediately. And I'm glad, like it's fine. I didn't tell you that there were any limitations around that, and I corrected it. And then once we got that, it became clear that we had to have a different starting point. So I'm glad that we kind of got there. I appreciate that you brought up the very very brute force approach to start. Um, it's not it's
yeah,
not necessarily a bad thing that you didn't say that there was something better, because maybe it's not necessarily clear to you that there's something better at that stage in time. So it's not the worst thing in the world that you didn't mention it. But I'm glad that we did sort of bring up this brute force approach. Um, so at some point, you suggested that we, take 4 digits and then we reverse it. And then I asked, okay, how do we reverse it? Let's be more specific. And you said, use a stack. And then that's it. There was silence after that. So I think it would have actually, so like
yeah.
that's one very specific place where I actually wanted more communication from you, where you said use a stack, but like you didn't explain at all what you meant by that. And I thought that that was like definitely like a red flag. So, explain, like, how would you use a stack? It's important to be a little bit more specific here. I had to prompt you for that. And ultimately, we actually didn't end up using a stack, which is okay. But I would have like, you could have used a stack in this case, but I would have wanted you to explain that more concretely. And I think you just were very non-verbose there. And I would have wanted that. Um, I think in general, as you sort of went through this problem, like I actually think that your problem solving around it was good. You sort of, you tripped up in the normal places where I would expect a candidate to trip up, but you ended up solving those situations. But I think the main issue is that like you didn't communicate your thoughts to me a lot of the time.
Right.
It's good that you communicated more maybe than your previous interview, but I actually want even more out of you. And the reason is exactly what your previous interviewer said. If you had suddenly started going down a bad path and you didn't
Yeah,
communicate to me your thoughts around that bad path, you would dig yourself into a very, very deep hole and not let me help you out of it. Because, eventually I will give a hint. In this case, I actually didn't need to give a hint because you kind of did start going in the right direction. But if you didn't
okay.
communicate,
Yeah,
we would have just sunk all of our time into the problem. So I want you to communicate your thoughts even more. I want, even if here's a common thing. Like when I was interviewing, something that I went through, I would think about the
okay.
problem and I would sometimes even overthink it, overcomplicate it. And as a result of that, my mind would be racing like a million miles a minute. I would be jumping to all the issues with the approach, why the approach isn't good. But I think it's important to verbalize that to me as your interviewer, because maybe I'll simplify the problem for you. Maybe I'll say, actually, let's ignore this. This isn't an issue, right? And I think by you not communicating as effectively, we can't get there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got it. Yeah.
So definitely communicate more in that aspect. Um,
Oh,
you did miss
yeah.
some basic cases around the minimum start, and actually had to like poke you about that a couple of times. So I'd just be a little bit more careful about it. Just we it didn't even just happen once. It happened like 2 or 3 times. So just be a little bit more aware about it.
Yeah.
I think at some point you said something about appending the reverse, and I wanted to clarify what we meant about that, especially because we said we weren't using string manipulation. So I'm glad that you explained that really well to me. What I really loved was your use of a helper function for reversing. Like that's great. That's something that I recommend to candidates all the time. Like it makes your code way more readable if you introduce helper functions into the mix, and it shows that you care about modularity. You know, about testing if we eventually wanted to write tests for it. So I thought that was excellent that you just did it on your own. So kudos on that.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
what one thing I saw that you were doing as you were writing that function is you were about to make the mistake of over calculating by 10 or something like that inside of your reverse function, but you caught yourself. So I just wanted to say kudos to that. I think one
Yeah,
thing that I would have really liked there is if you communicated that as you went, right? Because you didn't say anything when you were implementing that. And like I saw that we were potentially going to fall down a rabbit hole. And yes, you fixed it. But if you didn't communicate, like I would have wanted to hear your thoughts about what you just fixed, if that makes sense. Um,
yeah, yeah.
so yeah, but otherwise, I thought your implementation was overall pretty good. Um, the only thing is that at the very end, when I asked the follow up question about how would we generalize this, um, it took us maybe a little bit longer than I would have expected to actually. Do you see my highlighting up here?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it took a little bit longer than expected for us to realize we should actually pass in a parameter for the size of the palindrome length that we want. Um, like I tried to get at it by saying, do we want to re-implement this function, 1,000 different ways? It just took a little bit longer than I would have expected, is all. Um,
Okay.
Great. And don't worry about writing any of this down. All of this will be shared with you at the end. So do you have any questions about this first problem?
Um, yeah, I don't have any questions. Yeah, I don't have any questions. Yeah, yeah,
All right, great. Let's move on to the second problem then.
yeah, yeah.
So, um, I was totally okay with us not getting to code with this part because I thought I saw enough with the first problem. I wanted to see how you would approach this from a problem solving perspective. Um, I would say there are a lot of open-ended questions with this problem, and I'd say that like it was a little bit on the fence. Like some you answered really well and thoughtfully, and others you just like weren't really communicating with me at all. So like the very first one was, what format do we want the book? And I think that your intuition was really good to have like a list of strings. And I'm glad that we kind of caught up on that right away. But what I didn't so much see is that you didn't really bring up the issues of these like overly common words like is and the. You didn't bring up punctuation. You didn't bring up any of those issues and capitalization. Like you didn't bring up any of those issues. And I got the sense that you were maybe thinking about them, but you weren't verbalizing them because you were trying to jump to the perfect solution at the very end. And I would very much recommend against doing that. I want you to verbalize those thoughts, even if they feel wrong. Because again,
Okay.
what did I do at the very end? I simplified the problem for you. I said I'm totally okay with this format of the words. I'll give you the unimportant words, but I want you to communicate that to me and give me some of those ideas. Um, I felt like you didn't communicate that to me, and like that was like a pretty severe ding, I think, in my book, especially with like how open ended this problem really is. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm glad that you said that we should have a set of these words, of these unimportant words. I did bring that up as a suggestion to you, which wasn't great,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I'm glad that you suggested that instead of a list of words, you should use a hash set, because that will increase the improve the time complexity. So I'm glad that you brought that up. The only thing I would say is that there is an edge case here where if a word appears multiple times on a page, it will appear in your index multiple times. So for example, the word life, for example, it appears twice on page 1 or whatever, page 0. It would technically have appeared twice in your index because we didn't bring up this corner case. So I just wanted to bring that up as a potential issue.
yeah.
But overall, it was a good good algorithm and a good solution. Here's the thing. I would say that
Yeah.
from a problem solving perspective, you're really strong. But because of the
Okay.
like, if I just was grading you on problem solving, like if this was like a do I pass this candidate on to the next round or not? If it was purely based on the problem solving, I probably would pass you. Like
Oh,
I
okay.
would be
Okay.
leaning more towards yes than no. But given maybe how much you struggled with the open-ended nature of the second problem, like maybe it's okay to struggle with it. Like that's totally fine. But I'd say that overall, because the communication was lacking for problem one and problem two, I'm leaning actually more towards a no. Like I wouldn't have passed this candidate to the next round. So I would say that absolutely, like as you sort of continue to do practice, more practice interviews, but even more practice on your own, I would recommend that you like talk to yourself. Like try to go through these problems completely out loud as you face issues or foresee challenges. Like I want you to communicate that, even if you're, doing some lead code problems entirely on your own. Like pretend like there's somebody there and you're like explaining your approach to them as you go. And definitely, as you do your next interview, definitely communicate to the interviewer more.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's overall my impression. Um, do you have any questions for me about either the second problem or these sort of general notes that I've left you?
Um. Yeah. Yeah. I like the feedback you gave me. So very much on second question. So very so the like little by little. Yeah.
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 All right. Sounds good.
I think yeah the communication is key for the like the interviewing process.
Yeah. If it was only problem solving, overall you did well. But because it's not just that, I would say that that would be my main area of focus in terms of improvement.
Yeah.
All righty. If that's all, then I wish you the very best of luck in the future. And, if we connect after this, happy to chat again in the future.
Yeah. 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 Thank you very much. Yeah.
All
Thank you for
right.
your
Have a good
time
one.
and yeah. Yeah. And feedback. Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Yeah. Take care.